Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Sam from Historic Travels and welcome to another video. And as always, before we get started today, I'd just like to take a quick moment to welcome all my new subscribers and to thank everybody who's been leaving me comments and messages down below. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. And if you would like to take a couple extra steps to help support this channel a little bit more, there's a merch store and a Patreon for this channel in the links below. Thank you guys so much for all your support. And okay guys, the time has finally come. In today's video, we're going to be covering a topic that has been long requested on this channel. So what are we going to be talking about today? Well, I'm sure many of you out there have heard of a very famous ship called the RMS Titanic. For those of you who have never heard of this ship before, essentially the ship was the biggest in the world. It struck an iceberg on its maiden voyage and sunk on April 15, 1912. Although I'm pretty sure most of you out there know what this ship is. Am I right? I'm pretty sure you guys know what this ship is. Anyway, what many people don't realize is that the Titanic had two nearly identical sister ships. The first ship was the RMS Olympic, and the second ship was the HMHS Britannic. Now, of these three ships, the Titanic and the Britannic both sunk. The Britannic didn't sink on its maiden voyage, but it did sink relatively short into its career. I did make another video on the Britannic. If you would like to watch that, there's a link for that in the description below. But for today's video, I actually want to talk about the RMS Olympic. You see, unlike the other two ships of this fleet, the RMS Olympic did not sink. It had a very long career, and honestly, this ship really showed the full potential of the Olympic class of ocean liners. That's what the fleet of ships, Olympic, Titanic, and Britannic, were called. They were known as the Olympic class. So for today's video, I thought I would pay tribute to this very famous ocean liner and tell the complete story of the RMS Olympic. Although just keep in mind guys, the story of the Olympic is a very long one, so I am going to be breaking this video up into segments and parts and doing this series of videos just like I did the series of videos for the Titanic anniversary month. So this will probably be a 2 or 3 part video series. All right guys, well hey, without any further ado, let's get into it. The story of the RMS Olympic begins before the ship was even built. You see, in the early 1900s, there existed massive competition between steamship companies in regards to them trying to persuade people to sail on their prospective ships if they decided they wanted to immigrate from Europe to the United States. Now, in the early 1900s, there were many steamship companies out there that were all in direct competition with each other to try to get as much of the transatlantic crossing market as possible. You know, try to convince as many people as they can to sail on their prospective ships. Although for this video, we're going to focus on two. More specifically, the Cunard Line and the White Star Line. Now, the White Star Line would be the company that would eventually end up building the RMS Olympic, although we'll talk more about that in a minute. So, let's talk about the Cunard Line for a minute here. The Cunard Line had a simple strategy in the early 1900s. They wanted to build not only the biggest ships in the world, but they also wanted to build the fastest ships in the world. So the whole idea around the Cunard Line was they wanted to have some ships out there that basically they were unmatched in the level of luxury that was on board these ships, but they also wanted these ships to be the fastest. So because the Cunard Line had this vision, they introduced two new ships in the early 1900s that would completely change the transatlantic market. These ships would be the Lusitania and the Mauretania. In September of 1907, the Cunard Line revealed the Lusitania to the entire world. And at the time, this ship wasn't only just the biggest ship in the world, she was also the fastest, capable of crossing the entire Atlantic Ocean in just 5 days. And then, only a few months later, the Cunard Line wowed everybody again with the release of the RMS Mauretania. This ship was slightly bigger than that of the Lusitania, and it was also faster. So these two ships completely changed how people would traverse across the Atlantic Ocean if they wanted to immigrate from Europe to America. When the Cunard Line revealed the Lusitania and the Mauretania to the world, it was a huge blow for the White Star Line, because at the time their flagship vessels, the Majestic and the Teutonic, were both completed in the late 1800s and were nowhere near the size or speed capabilities of the Cunard Line's brand new Lusitania and Mauretania. So it was clear the White Star Line, if they wanted to stay relevant, would have to do something huge in order to compete with these brand new flagship liners by the Cunard Line. J. Bruce Ismay, the head of the White Star Line, knew that if he wanted to keep up with the Cunard Line, then they would have to build a whole new class of liner. Although he decided to do things a little bit differently than Cunard Line. He decided, instead of trying to build the biggest and fastest ships in the world, he would simply try to build the biggest ships in the world, unmatched in their style and luxury and size. And with these brand new vessels, maybe the White Star could overtake the Cunard Line. Ismay then went and had a private meeting with William Peary, the head of the Harland & Wolff shipyard, where at which Ismay discussed his plans for these whole new class of liners. Now, together, William Peary and Ismay planned out these brand new ships, and then they sought out to build the biggest and most luxurious ocean liners the world had ever seen to beat the Cunard Line's Lusitania and Mauretania. Now, one very important thing to realize about Ismay. Ismay was not a shipbuilder, a sailor, or anything like that. He was simply a businessman who ran the White Star Line. So even though he discussed his idea of this new class of ship with William Peary, it was up to William Peary and his team over at Harland & Wolff to bring Ismay's vision into reality. So once William Peary knew what Ismay and the White Star Line wanted for this whole new class of ship, Peary then went and got other lead figures of his design team to begin helping him develop this whole new class of liner. The other key members of Peary's design team were Alexander Carlisle and Thomas Andrews. Thomas Andrews, a naval architect at the Harland & Wolff shipyard, his responsibilities in the construction of this whole new class of liner had to do with calculating the design of this brand new ship, as well as managing the ship's stability and trim while this new vessel was at sea. Alexander Carlisle, the shipyard's chief draftsman and general manager, his responsibilities in this whole new class of liner had to do with the equipment that would be needed for the new ship, making sure everything ran smoothly on board, the decorations for the new vessel, as well as come up with an efficient lifeboat davit design, so if needed in an emergency, they would be able to lower the lifeboats from these vessels efficiently. But before work could even begin on this brand new class of liner, there first needed to be a space where these brand new ships could be built. You see, at the time, these ships were going to be so large that there wasn't a shipyard in the world that had enough space to build them. So Harland & Wolff had to completely tear down and design a brand new location within their shipyard where these new monstrous vessels could be built. Now, I want you to think about that for a moment here. Just the whole idea that the Harland & Wolff shipyard had to go out and develop their own custom location within the shipyard to house these brand new vessels while they were being built is a true testament to the scale of this project that Harland & Wolff and the White Star Line was taking on as they attempted to build this whole new class of liner. Now, eventually, this whole new class of liner would become known as the Olympic class of ocean liners, and there would be 3 ships in the class. The first ship would be called the RMS Olympic, and then a few months after construction on Olympic began, work began on the Olympic sister ship, and that ship would become known as the RMS Titanic. And then a little bit after construction on Titanic began, the third ship in the class construction began. That ship would become known as the RMS Britannic. Although the RMS Britannic would never be because of the outbreak of World War I, this ship later became a hospital ship, so its official term was the HMHS Britannic. Now, work officially began on the RMS Olympic in December of 1908, and then Titanic work began on her soon after. Although it's important to note that at the time, these vessels did not have official names yet. You see, while a vessel is under construction, until it has an official name of its own, these ships are simply referred to as a hull number. So that means that whenever somebody was talking about the Olympic, they would call her by her hull number, ship number 400. And then if they were talking about Titanic, they would call that ship by her hull number, which was ship 401. And these would be the official designations of these vessels until the vessel's official name was announced. Now, during the first year or two of construction on the brand new RMS Olympic, things were proceeding rather smoothly at the Harland & Wolff shipyard. Although, as time went on, it soon became apparent at the shipyard that they needed to solve a very critical problem with the RMS Olympic that they had yet to resolve. And that was, what kind of propulsion system would this brand new, monstrous ocean liner use to propel itself across the Atlantic? Now, of course, when I ask what kind of propulsion system would the brand new RMS Olympic use, we all immediately think of it was a steam-powered ship, and you would be right. The Olympic and all other vessels of this time period were powered by steam. Basically, all these vessels had a bunch of boilers deep inside these vessels, and then firemen would shovel coal into these boilers, generating steam pressure that in which in turn would run the vessel across the Atlantic. But when I asked the question earlier about what kind of propulsion system this brand new vessel would use, I was actually referring to the engines themselves that would be responsible for pushing the ship across the Atlantic. So you see, in the time period before Olympic, all steamships used essentially the same type of propulsion system, which was called a reciprocating engine. And in a nutshell, what a reciprocating engine did was the steam pressure generated by the ship's boilers turned a piston, and then this in turn allowed the engines to spin the ship's propeller. Although, with the Cunard Line's Lusitania and Mauretania, the Cunard Line had introduced a brand new revolutionary engine known as the Turbine Engine. And this engine was unbelievable in terms of its performance. Although the White Star Line wasn't completely sold on the idea of the turbine engine for the brand new RMS Olympic and eventually the brand new RMS Titanic. Because where the Lusitania and the Mauretania had these turbine engines, they could go across the Atlantic very quickly, although that wasn't the main goal of the White Star Line for these brand new vessels. And also, these engines weren't exactly efficient. Sure, the turbine engine was very fast, but it used a lot more fuel than the traditional reciprocating engine. But even though the turbine engine wasn't exactly efficient in terms of fuel usage, the White Star Line was still interested in the technology and wondered if there was a way they could implement the turbine engine as well as the traditional reciprocating engine. So maybe they could try to find a way to keep the efficiency of the reciprocating engine and get some of the speed boosts of a turbine engine. But as luck would have it, while the White Star Line was developing the RMS Olympic, the shipyard at Harland & Wolff was also developing two new vessels for the Dominion Line, the Albany and the Alberta. And the White Star Line had it in their means to actually acquire these vessels and use them for an experiment in order for them to figure out what propulsion system would work the best on the brand new RMS Olympic. So you see, the Dominion Line, just like the White Star Line, were owned by the International Mercantile Marine Company. But because White Star Line was the bigger company of the two, the International Mercantile Marine Company allowed the White Star to take these two vessels that were under construction for the Dominion Line and use them in an experiment to help them figure out what type of propulsion system would work best on the brand new RMS Olympic. The White Star Line changed the SS Albany's name to be called the SS Megantic, and once the White Star Line got their hands on this vessel, they made sure to equip the vessel with two traditional reciprocating engines. The second ship the White Star Line took from the Dominion Line, the Alberta, had its name changed to be called the Laurentic, and it too was equipped with two reciprocating engines just like its sister ship, although the Laurentic had one major difference. So the big difference the Laurentic had over its sister ship Megantic is that it had one extra engine that the Megantic didn't have. The Laurentic was still equipped with two reciprocating engines, just like its sister ship Megantic, which means it had two propellers on the back powered by two reciprocating engines, although the Laurentic had one of the brand new turbine engines. So essentially, where the Megantic just had the two propellers on the back, the Laurentic looked more like the Olympic would once construction on it was finished. The Laurentic had two propellers on the back with one central high-speed propeller in the middle of the back of the ship that was powered by the turbine engine. Then, once both these vessels were complete and they began to set sail, the White Star Line then kept an eye on how these vessels performed. They wanted to see if the additional engine added to the Laurentic would make the turbine engine worth it for all their future vessels. So they kept an eye on the Laurentic's speed, engine efficiency, and so on. And then they compared the performance of the Laurentic with its sister ship Megantic that didn't have this extra turbine engine. And what made this such a great experiment in order for them to figure out if this central propeller would make such a huge difference between these two vessels is because the Laurentic and the Megantic were basically the exact same ship. So the only difference between the two was that the Laurentic had this engine and the Megantic didn't. So by comparing the performance of these two vessels with just the additional engine added to the Laurentic, they could see if this new engine would make a difference and if they should implement it on the new RMS Olympic. And boy, let me tell you, what a difference that third central turbine propeller made when it came to the performance between the Laurentic and its sister ship Megantic. I mean, the Laurentic swam circles around the Megantic in terms of speed. The efficiency of the engines was top-notch. I mean, honestly, the Laurentic really showed the future of what this third central propeller powered by a turbine could do for the shipping industry. Now, the Megantic wasn't retired immediately or anything, it still had a career, although it was clear that the future in ship design involved a third central turbine propeller. So this design was decided upon and used on the brand new Olympic class of ocean liners. With the decision on what types of engines the Olympic would use having been decided, work resumed on the Olympic and construction went at a pretty reasonable pace. Now, even though they decided what types of engines these ships would use, it would still be quite some time before the engines were actually put inside the vessel. You see, before they could put the engines in the vessel, two things had to happen first. Number one, they had to finish the actual hull of the Olympic and get the ship out of the slipway. So essentially what a slipway is, when any new vessel is being constructed, the hull of the ship is built inside a slipway. And a slipway is a track system that allows the shipbuilders to actually slide a vessel into the water once construction on the vessel's hull is complete. And you see, it was because of the slipway system that they had to use in order to slide vessels into the water that they had to wait until after the Olympic went down the slipway until they could actually put the engines inside of the Olympic's hull. You see, the big reason they had to wait is because in order to get one of these vessels to slide down the track the right way and gently slide into the water is because they had to have the weight right so the ship would evenly slide across the track. Now, if they would have put the engines in first before they tried to slide the Olympic down the slipway and into the water, then that would create a huge weight difference between the back of the ship and the front of the ship, because you have to remember, before a vessel is slid into the water, she's just an empty shell. There's nothing inside the vessel. It's just the outline of the vessel's hull. Basically, the only thing the vessel has at that point is just the ability to float. There's nothing inside the ship that would make it a liner. And if they would have put the engines in the back before they slid it into the water, that would create a huge weight difference and cause the ship to slide unevenly down the slipway as it was going into the water. Maybe the back of the ship would end up grinding against the ground as it slid down. Maybe it would get jammed on the slipway and not slide into the water at all. There's 1,000 things that could go wrong if they tried to do anything before they got the Olympic into the water successfully. Now, when the time comes to officially send a vessel down the slipway and into the water, this event is called a vessel's launch. The footage you are seeing here is colorized video of the launch of the steamship Oceanic, launched in the year 1899. And the reason I'm showing you this is because this footage gives you a great idea as to what the launch of a ship is like once construction on this vessel's hull is complete and the vessel is slid into the water. And in just under 2 years since construction began on the RMS Olympic, the vessel's hull was complete and the ship was ready to slide down the slipway and go into the water. Now, one thing to understand about the launch of a brand new vessel, it was a pretty public event. There was always a lot of press, a lot of families from people from the shipyard were present. It was a pretty big deal when a brand new vessel was sliding down the slipway and into the water. So William Peary, the head of Harland & Wolff, actually had the Olympic painted all white so the ship would show up very well in the photographs taken of the vessel during the launch. And honestly, guys, it's a really good thing that William Peary had the Olympic painted all white for the photographs because of how well the Olympic's hull shows up in this very old footage. I mean, take a look at this. You are watching real footage of the Olympic sliding down the slipway and into the water. And remember, this video was shot in 1910, and look how clear it looks. I mean, you are actually watching the launch of the Olympic right now. And honestly, I just find that unbelievable. But yeah, the launch of the Olympic went without any problems. The vessel successfully made it down the slipway and into the water. And at this point, the Olympic was ready to be fitted out and be transformed into the liner she was destined to become. Alright everybody, well hey, I think I'm going to wrap up the video here. I think this is a good place to stop for now, and then in part 2 of the Olympic story video, we will continue on with the tale of the RMS Olympic. Now remember guys, this series is going to cover the entire life of the Olympic. In episode 1, what you just watched, we covered how the Olympic was planned and the story of how the Olympic was built. And then in episode 2, we will talk more about the Olympic's first few years at sea and what happened with her during this time period. So stand by for that video. That video should be coming very soon. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. This video was a ton of fun to make, and it was a lot of work to do all the research and figure all this out. So if you wouldn't mind, please give this video a thumbs up. If you're new here, please subscribe to the channel. And guys, Please keep doing what you're doing. You guys are awesome. Thank you guys so much for all the support. Let me know what you thought of this video in the comments below. And guys, keep doing what you're doing. You guys are awesome. All right, everybody. Well, hey, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a good day, everybody.